So I was hoping to find a quiet spot. It's not really very quiet. Welcome to Ho Chi Minh City, the city that never sleeps. Although actually this is quite quiet. So everybody's in bed here, and I just wanted to come on because I've been quiet for a couple of days. Cement mixer. It's 8:45. So yeah, I've been quiet for a couple of days, but it's because I've been really busy and I've had a lot to process and think about. And as so many of my videos here start, I met a really cool person today. So this is what happens: is I have ideas percolating in my brain, and then I meet someone, and I do totally understand that I am ridiculously lucky, and I feel overwhelming gratitude that although there was sanitizer and masks and we couldn't shake hands, we did the elbow bumps. I'm privileged that I can meet people and talk to people, riff off people who have some really cool ideas. So today I was lucky enough to go and see someone who saw my work with families, 1-to-1 and 1-to-2, and I'll just share a bit more about that work. So within my practice of working 1-to-1 and 1-to-2 with couples, so with parents or with mum and dad teams or co-parents that don't even need to be together, I guess, as long as they can sit together. And what we do is we talk about why they've come to see me and their family needs. It's families with disconnects at home, or who particularly right now, and a lot of this is, I guess, lockdown and restricted movement induced, people are finding that the cycles that they have been vaguely aware of from their own childhoods, from their own upbringing, from their own formative youth are coming back as well, maybe they were never free of them, but it's all coming to a head now that everybody's in the same house 24 hours a day for basically a year. This is what's perfectly expected. It actually is quite normal, and it's happening a lot. So these are the people that I work with, and what we do is we go deep. We use meditation techniques. We do lots of thinking and sitting with our experiences, and we work together to understand what the triggers are. So if you imagine that you have a trigger sitting inside you from your childhood, from the way that you were treated as a childhood, be it that you came out of your youth with, we'd say, trauma with a capital T, or trauma with a lowercase t, which is no less valid. We all come out with needs that weren't met, because nobody can have their needs met all of the time, and all of us have these wounds that sometimes our children or children that we work with, I'm speaking here with my my former youth offending officer hat on, speaking as a former teacher, speaking as a former volunteer with charities, homeless young people, I'm speaking as a mom with a childhood myself. We all have, people call it baggage. We quite freely talk about baggage, but what we mean is wounds from our childhood. So I work with people to work out what they are, to work out which of our children's behaviours that children present just by being alive and getting through their own day, they trigger us and we react. And through doing the work that I do, we reach a point where we can respond consciously, because we are free of these triggers, or the triggers are very, very dulled, and we can work through that, and we can say, okay, I'm being triggered by this, I'm going to shelf it, and then we go deal with that later, instead of flipping our lid or exploding or shutting down. So this is the work that I do 1-to-1, 1-to-2 in families. And I was lucky enough to go meet somebody today who said, I see this, but I see it in the context of leadership and schools. Can you come and chat? which of course, yes, this is amazing. And we were talking about how within, when you have people who are moved up, I suppose you would say, or moved to a different realm, say I'm thinking from being a class teacher to being put in charge of the year group or the phase group or the subject department. We often get a lot of training in, okay, this is the nuts and bolts, this is how you do the software, this is how you run a meeting, this is, the things that you have to do in order to fulfill your job requirements. Okay, brilliant, that's great. And what we don't realise, or maybe we don't realise it consciously, what is becoming new with this kind of more holistic view is that these people are people. Things like teaching, engineering, all departments, all professions. The things that make them so special, thinking of teaching here, you think of all the different backgrounds teachers have. You have your career teachers who've gone, BA education, maybe an MEd, PGCE. You have people who've come from the military. You have people who come from industry. You have scientists. You have geologists. You have all kinds of people. This is what makes it so awesome. And all of these people have childhoods. I know, shocker. But all of these people have childhoods and formative experiences and their own set of circumstances that led them to make their own choices now. These are people who, I'm just going to come out with an example which was almost, but it was kind of funny, but it turned out when we drilled into it, it was quite important. Things like, say you have a teacher now, in their 40s, who is now in charge of a department, who is, kicking off in the heads of department going, look, I don't have enough money for my department and I want it now. Biology has, £2,000 more than me, or whatever, dollars, or whatever you work in. I want this. I want a new teacher, because they're thinking about their needs for their department and they're thinking they're doing the right thing. Because as a primary school teacher, I always used to refer to my class as my kids. Obviously, I always wanted the best for my kids. But when you're transitioning into leadership, you need to be able to think of this bigger picture. And if you are still the adult with an unhealed wound from your childhood where you didn't have enough food growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and you have this trigger around scarcity, one, when your kid doesn't eat their lunch or their dinner that you have made for them after your tiring day, and they go, this is disgusting. I challenge anyone to say that they have had a kid who's never done that. You're going to be triggered and you're going to react, because you're not reacting from a place of, oh, what's happening with my child here? They're uncomfortable about textures. Maybe we could solve this. You're going, how dare you waste food? And here we have, this is the thing with the triggers that I work with families, but it does extrapolate to industry. And you can tell how excited I am, because I'm seeing that when you have these, say a head of department, say a middle leader, kicking off because they're not playing the game as a whole school leader, it's not necessarily because they don't have the skills. It's because they have a stock scarcity mindset. And there are programs like mine, or the one that I'm creating right now, busy beavering away, and my head is going around. This work, this shadow work applies, and it can have huge ramifications for your life, your parenting, which is how I started on this field. It has ramifications for you as a human being, as a loving partner, husband, wife, and I'm already getting this feedback from people doing the 6-week program, Deactivate Triggers, Activate Love. People are finding that they are showing up at work happier, more confident. I'm about to run out of time, so I'm just going to leave that with you. I'm really interested to know what your thoughts are, because this is, I think, a really exciting avenue for applications for this kind of deactivating triggers work. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for your time. Bye.